Hina and Yuzuki in NieR Reincarnation unexpectedly became characters that are important to the overall narrative of the series. As I said in my previous video about reincarnation, I was only loosely following the narrative. I played a lot at launch, but weaned off midway into the recent Sun and Moon arc. Plus, seeing how the story revolves around weapon stories and developing characters around specific weapons, it was a subtle inspiration to my weapon story series. But I never expected Hina and Yuzuki, the protagonists of the Sun and Moon arc, to help bridge the gap between the Drakengard and NieR, adding more events to the overall timeline and changing what we had previously believed in. I do want to give a big thank you to Naoto Hex for allowing me to use their footage. As I said, I am behind on Reincarnation's story, and their footage saved me a lot of time catching up and viewing Hina and Yuzuki's dark memory stories. Check out Naoto Hex's channel in the description if you want to see their full stories and the other Reincarnation dark memories. Hina and Yuzuki are siblings. Their stories have two realities, one in the cage, and the other referred to as the Divergent phenomena. I will only be discussing about Divergent phenomena in this video, since that is the one that is set after the 612 incident and the spread of white chlorination syndrome. Their stories begin in May 2020. Hina is trying to protect her little brother, Yuzuki, from the twisted world. They had been running away from something for days. Their clothes were wet, no food or water, and no parents. But something was approaching them. A white skeletal monster was near, looking for humans to attack. These monsters are called Legion, creatures that originated from a disease called white chlorination syndrome. When the giant beast and dragon came into our world, the chemicals from the beast infected humans. Humans infected with the disease are given one of two fates: die and become a lump of salt, or lose their minds and become creatures set to end humanity. The siblings were hiding inside the building, with Yuzuki on the verge of tears. Hina did her best into calming him down by holding onto him tightly. They tried to escape, but this caused a loud noise and alerted the monster. Hina made eye contact with the monster, as she hid Yuzuki behind her in an attempt to keep him safe. But she was certain that they were going to die from a single crush of the monster's massive hand. The sound of gunfire emitted, and the monster's splintered body fell to the ground in a cloud of white dust. The siblings were saved from a group of young soldiers, and Yuzuki began to cry after days of tension. Hina knew she needed to gather the strength to protect what is most precious to her. Jumping ahead to June 2028, Hina is now the captain of a squad of soldiers for the Hamlin organization. The organization itself is composed of young soldiers given a drug called luciferase, a white chlorination syndrome resistant. But don't be fooled, it's not a cure. Since luciferase is more responsive to younger individuals, the organization's soldiers are mainly composed of teenagers. Hina is loyal to her comrades, even lying to her commander, telling him that she ordered a retreat that never happened, just so that way she can protect her squad mates. All were punished with cleaning and preparing a ship carrying precious cargo. If they failed to do so, they would be discharged. When assigning her squad mates, she gave herself the more demeaning tasks: the boiler, morgue, and sewage tanks. This did not bother her. She continued without worry, even after her squad mates told her not to punish herself too heavily. She completed her tasks, and her final duty was to report back to the general. On her way back, she entered a storage house with a sturdy cage inside containing a massive Legion that was captured. She understood. The precious cargo was the Legion, and they stare at each other. With its empty eye sockets, she feels as if it was looking right through her. But she still built up the strength to leave it alone and continue with her duties. Thankfully, Hina returned to the general on time, saving her squad mates from further punishment. Now at sea, The squad are painfully aware of the potential outcome when the ship arrives. Hina and her squad are expected to defend the cargo from Legion by transporting the captured Legion to a foreign research facility. They are soon informed by the general that the harbor had already been attacked by Legion. Hina issues orders, preparing first aid, readying a submarine, and gathering weapons. But the ship begins to shake from something massive once the soldiers are outfitted. The ship was under attack. Crackling voices over the PA system warn everyone on board, followed by a crunching sound, blood-curdling scream, then silence. They rush to the main deck with Hina still trying to calm her soldiers' nerves, praying they can somehow remain safe. One Legion stands on the deck, arms covered in blood, howling with a voice of terror. This Legion had adapted to life in the ocean, a hard shell covering its countless thin legs and tentacles and fin-like protrusions across its body, resembling a crustacean. Hina tightens her grip on her sword, preparing to fight and protect her unit. They successfully defeat the lone Legion, but there's no time for joy. There's still more to overcome. Hina runs through the ship praying that she can save as many as she can. She goes towards every cry for help she hears through her wireless system. She knows the layout of the ship very well, always taking the fastest routes. She is highly skilled, defeating several Legion by herself as she moves through the ship, using her handgun to pierce the skulls of smaller enemies and kicking ammunition meant for the ship's cannons to explode Legion heads. She is the single ray of hope in the gloom of her unit. Any survivors she finds are sent to the deck to help ward off further attack. As she slowly pushes the Legion back, suddenly, she hears a high-pitched shriek of metal, followed by a violent shudder. She calls for the status report of the ship, but she hears the news. The hull of the ship had been torn open, and water is rushing. Despair fills her being as her heart beats faster. The ship is beginning to sink as Hina activates her comm to speak to the survivors. She orders them to take the submarine and abandon ship. Roughly 40 souls gather to the hangar, less than half of the number they started the voyage with. Once they are safely inside, Hina looks up at the lone figure beckoning her from the open hatch. She tells the survivors that she is staying on board. As the soldiers tell her not to stay, a Legion tears the hangar door from its hinges. Her sacrifice is clear. If she doesn't stop the remaining Legion, the submarine will never get clear of the ship. The survivors say they will come back for her, as the submarine begins to slip free of the ship. Hina steadies herself against the wall of the hangar. Her body is in pain. Her bones are shattered, as she looks out at the trail of dead comrades. She is not finished. The howls of Legion mock her, as water fills the halls. She begins losing her sense of up from down. The cargo they were meant to transport slowly rises before her. This massive Legion is what tore the ship apart. Every moment is agony. Yet in this moment of helplessness, Hina smiles. She forgets her wounds as she fights off the massive Legion, dodging its arms as she plunges her blade into the thin joint between its bones. She is glee. She is delight. This was the secret she kept hidden. She suffered from stress-induced psychiatric disorder. It developed as a result of constantly protecting her brother, leading her to always volunteer for increasingly dangerous assignments. The stress of these situations would send waves of ecstasy flowing through her system. But now, it's over. As her chest fills with unfathomable emptiness, she gently lifts the monster's decapitated skull in her small hands. "Thank you for amusing me," she says as she presses her lips to an exposed piece of bone. As the ship slowly sinks, along with Hina's broken secret amidst a broken world, the waves wash quietly atop one another as if nothing was there, with the rays of the sun shining between the clouds as they bathe the ocean in a soft and fleeting light. September 2028. Yuzuki is quiet by nature and part of a 20-person platoon. He is accompanied by 3 other soldiers, a cowardly boy, a girl with red hair, and another girl with crooked teeth. They are a platoon of rejects, a label given to them by the Hamlin organization. As expected, the group wasn't always getting along. Yuzuki lost his footing when walking over a white powder stone over the pavement. This powder is not salt. It is the mineral that comes from human corpses. One result of humans affected with white chlorination syndrome is their bodies dissolving into a salt-like powder, or they lose themselves and turn into legion. The girl with crooked teeth catches Yuzuki before he falls, but she sees him as a feeble kid. The redhead tries to calm them down, acknowledging the fact that they need to work together, even if the organization doesn't see their value. But the girl with crooked teeth still doesn't believe this, thinking she's only there to support the other rejects. Their mission is to look for a researcher infected with white chlorination syndrome but retains his mental faculties. As the other rejects remain arguing, Yuzuki looks up and sees a gloomy, violent cloud hanging over the city. Rain is coming, and it might change their route. The group halts as they hear a whisper from another platoon member saying Legion with despair in their voice. A skyscraper stands on the edge of collapse, and behind it, Legion, a massive enemy with an outer shell of hardened bone, probably 130 feet tall and bringing fear through the platoon. The Legion slowly turns to look at them, and in a single screaming mass, they turn and run into the ruins of a nearby building. The howl causes their ears to bleed, and the building they use to seek shelter is scarcely holding together. The Legion attempts to smash the building and everyone inside it. Everyone is shuddering in terror, except Yuzuki, with his calm breaths. He looks outside and forms a plan. The cowardly boy will run out and lure the monster, while the girl with crooked teeth and the others help clear a path. They attempt the plan, but as the Legion reaches down to rend the cowardly boy in two, the red-headed girl fires a bullet to knock the Legion's hand away. The cowardly boy and monster arrive at a suspension bridge on the verge of collapse with a gaping hole underneath. All goes to plan, and lightning strikes the bridge's support tower. The cowardly boy dashes across and leaps to safety, but the Legion is not as coordinated, stumbling to the side. The bridge and the beast fall into the abyss as the platoon rejoice at Yuzuki's brilliance. The victory was short-lived. 6 more Legion were lurking in the area and began to attack the platoon. Yuzuki, still on the roof of the building, listens to their screams and cries for help over his wireless communication device. 13 of the 20-member platoon lost their lives during this attack. The surviving platoon mates cradled the bloody corpses in their arms, one of which being the cowardly boy, torn limb from limb. The girl with crooked teeth was quick to blame their deaths on Yuzuki, with her face bloody and filled with rage, calling him a feeble kid, an insult commonly given by commanding officers to ridicule Yuzuki. The redheaded girl told her to stop, ensuring that the Legion's retreat shows they have a chance at survival. But the girl with crooked teeth believes they only left because they were responding to a possible nearby red eye. Red Eye is the nickname given to intelligent Legion with glowing red eyes. These Legion have the capability to control other mindless Legion, making them even more terrifying. Yuzuki looked down and noticed the girl with the crooked teeth's white skin and the tears of her sleeve. White like salt, she was infected with white chlorination syndrome. Of the 7 survivors, 3 of them were infected. They were plunged into despair. They needed to find the researcher. The survivors soon arrive at what is believed to be the facility. The smell of chemicals moved through Yuzuki's nose, but there was no sight of the researcher yet. Thankfully, they did not encounter any Legion or Red Eye. Clumps of salt were scattered to their feet, and the girl with crooked teeth walked beside Yuzuki. The red-headed girl tried to calm the girl with crooked teeth, seeing as how she was quivering slightly. The group eventually found the researcher's name tag, lying atop a pile of salt in the shape of a human. Yuzuki looked through the nearby documents and found nothing of help. Just accounts of white chlorination syndrome. No cure. Once someone contracts the disease, There is no way to recover. He laughed at it all. There was no hope for them. He crumpled up the document in his hand, noticing his hand was also white. All 7 of the survivors were now infected. The group huddled together, knowing their backup was probably not going to come for them. The girl with crooked teeth slowly apologized to Yuzuki for calling him a feeble kid. She began to talk about her life, always wanting to be an outstanding member of the organization. Everyone in the room shared this dream. They were all labeled as rejects and crushed all their hearts. They all feel a sense of happiness during their final moments together as they turn into salt. The girl with crooked teeth then asked Yuzuki what he dreamed of. He said he wanted to be a person worthy of his older sister, Hina. The light of the moon shimmers Yuzuki's calcified hand like a crystal as he looked at his new friends, all with the same pale glow surrounding each of them. Morning came and he woke up to a scream. The girl with crooked teeth was no longer smiling and had torn out the throat of one of their companions. She will become Legion. Madness has taken over her. The red-headed girl pulled out her gun, but is hesitant to shoot what was once her friend. Yuzuki, shutting down his emotions, took the gun away from her and shot the maddened girl through the head. As the shot rang out, the reinforcement helicopter arrived with a static voice asking if there were any survivors. Yuzuki looked at the corpses and quietly said that there were 5, but nothing to show for it. But the survivors were taken into organizational custody. Yuzuki was left lying on the floor of a cage within the organization's basement. The disease has spread all over his body, almost reaching its end. How did things end up like this? He hears a woman scream, turns his body towards it. A 4-limbed monster thrashes wildly. That monster used to be the red-headed girl. His commanding officer and subordinates enter the room with Yuzuki, staring at the monster that used to be his friend. The commanding officer claims the experiment was a failure, then tells his subordinates to kill the monster. Gunshots ring. The monster's screams shake the room. Yuzuki's vision is bathed in red. "I hate you," Yuzuki says chokingly. The mission was a lie. There was no intention to find a researcher. The mission's intention was to send a platoon into an unexplored area to see if they would catch white chlorination syndrome, then have the organization observe its progress. The red-headed girl had figured it out when looking through some files in the research facility. The night before their rescue, the red-headed girl told Yuzuki, "Or experiments. That's it. That's all." He didn't believe it at first, but now he sees the truth. The commanding officer thanked Yuzuki for his work, because he expected the platoon to have been wiped out, but Yuzuki saved them, allowing the experiment to continue. But they had fewer samples than initially estimated. Yuzuki's body had grown weaker, hatred growing, anger filled him, red. "We just wanted to do our best." The officer tilted his head when hearing this, calling Yuzuki a feeble kid and ensuring the experiments will serve the organization's better personnel quite well. He remembers the smiles of his companions. Their dreams of helping the organization were scattered to the winds. The light in the room turns to red. Something snaps deep within Yuzuki as sirens begin to wail. Legion are attacking, as screams echo through the base, followed by wet sounds similar to rotten fruit being thrown against the wall. The commander and his men are afraid, with the hinges of the door suddenly being torn open. Legion tear chunks from fleeing researchers. Meat slips from bone like a glove leaving a hand. Blood, slaughter, death. A feeling settles in Yuzuki's chest as he watches from his cage, but it is not despair. He began to laugh at the situation, growing louder and louder, until he is covered in blood, vomit, and bile. His feeling is of delight. Yuzuki believes these people deserve their fate. They ridiculed him and his comrades and toyed with their lives. Finally, the Legion stands before Yuzuki. Its hand tears open the cage with ease. He is not afraid. He closed his eyes and patiently waited. But his end did not come. The Legion kneeled before him and bowed their heads, bowing before his bright red eyes. Voiceless thoughts fill his head. Kill them. Kill the enemies of our gods. Kill them all. He has become Red Eye. Red Eye exists to control the Legion and end humanity, with Yuzuki's presence bringing the Legion to the base. He slowly gets on his feet and moves towards the commanding officer, huddled in the corner. The commanding officer begged for his life. "I always knew you were special. I knew it. And you could use that power for the organization. You're nothing like those rejects, nothing." His platoon mates, his friends, were all dead, and this man cannot stop disgracing the memories of them. Yuzuki responded by saying, "This never would have happened if you didn't send us to that god-forsaken place." The Legion ripped the officer to shreds. Yuzuki grinded chunks of meat beneath his heel as he walked into the corridor. Legion are perched atop unidentifiable corpses, bowing to Yuzuki as he passed by with a smile. If they find a living member of the organization, he kills them. Revenge for himself and his companions. Revenge for being named rejects. Revenge for being discarded. The base is now quiet. There is no one left. This place now belongs to Legion. His crimson eyes turn towards the window as the brilliant moon shines over the bloody fortress, as if it were in celebration.